Central Europe, the Swiss Alps rise like a wall of stone, ice and silence. On its peaks, where the altitude exceeds 4,000 meters, the snow remains all year round. Below, deep valleys channel meltwater rivers through dense forests, steep hillsides and lake-dotted plains. The verticality of the terrain defines every corner of this ecosystem. What seems inert actually changes constantly with the season, the climate and the altitude. For millions of years, successive glaciations shaped this region. They advanced and retreated, sculpting mountains, excavating canyons, and leaving behind a fragmented landscape where life learned to endure ice, altitude, and scarcity. Today, in this harsh environment, species that have made adaptation their only strategy survive. More than 200 varieties of birds, dozens of mammals and reptiles, and hundreds of invertebrates. Each life form responds precisely to an environment marked by cold, altitude, and slope. Ibexes that challenge vertical walls with almost impossible precision, resting their hooves in tiny fissures where no other species could hold. Nearby, golden eagles soar over the steep slopes, always alert to the slightest carelessness. In this landscape broken by ice and time, each species clings to its own resources: hooves, wings, camouflage, speed, endurance. But even here, where everything seems too harsh to hide anything, the risk does not disappear. Among the low bushes moves the fox, a patient opportunist who tracks without haste and hides with equal skill. Higher up, where the rock gives way to fir and beech, the wolf lives. It doesn't hunt alone. It forms alliances, creates bonds of brotherhood, and shares the effort. At these heights, survival doesn't always depend on strength, but on bonds. Thus begins this journey through the Swiss Alps, a land where cold, altitude, and time have sculpted a closed, demanding, and brutally beautiful world. High in the Swiss Alps, where the air is thin and rock covers everything, night falls suddenly, swept away by a ferocious storm. The water doesn't fall, it crashes, pushed by a relentless wind. At over 3,000 meters above sea level, on these exposed ridges where trees are non-existent and natural protection is minimal, the deluge turns the trails into sloping rivers. The rumble of thunder echoes across the mountains, bouncing from one peak to another. In this brutal scenario, the creatures have begun to retreat, anticipating the storm. Underground, the marmots had surrendered to torpor days ago. Below, foxes descend cautiously, seeking shelter among the trees. And in the valleys, deer gather silently, huddled together by fear and the rain. But at these rugged heights, where only the most hardened venture, some specimens still move. A group of ibexes advances slowly along a damp slope. They are dense shadows against the grey of the stone. They climb with a concentration that borders on ritual. The wind whips their backs, the rain runs down their faces, but they never leave the line of ascent. Among them, a female leads the group. Around them, other adults and several young offspring advance confidently, moving with the skill that comes from experience on those steep edges. Climbing at this hour isn't a whim, nor is it simply a search for shelter. It's a planned journey. Even if the cliffs are slippery, even if every step is a gamble against the abyss, they continue. And they can do so because they are designed to do so. The ibex's hooves are split, formed by two flexible lobes that open and adapt to every crack, every irregularity in the rock. At its base, a calloused pad generates friction even on these wet surfaces. They are living tools, designed to adhere rather than to step. And although the rain tonight negates some of that advantage, the precision is still astonishing. They climb with their usual serenity, fully trusting the firmness of each ledge beneath their hooves. But there's no second chance. One slip, and their bodies plummet violently, accelerating uncontrollably until they crash against a sharp rock or the hard, brittle ground of the cliff. But this time, the danger doesn't reach them. After a persistent climb surrounded by water and fog, they reach what they were looking for, a wide ledge protected by a rock overhang. At its bottom, a dark opening, a deep cave, carved millennia ago by ice. This isn't the first time they've come here. It's a place of memory, passed down from generation to generation. Inside, the ground is dry. The low ceiling cuts the wind. The group settles in leisurely, the young nestle next to the adults. Outside, the storm continues, but inside, the tension dissolves for a moment. The calm is absolute. This effort to reach a cave is neither an accident nor an exception. In the alpine ecosystem, where seasons occur with disproportionate intensity, knowing where to go is as vital as knowing how to get around. This cavity in the rock is not a permanent home, but it is a place the group remembers. In winter, the sun shines early on this side of the mountain, melting the frost more quickly. During cold nights, the rock retains some of its accumulated heat, and most importantly, there are no direct access routes for land-based predators. The only entrance is the same one the group climbed. Here, for a few hours, they are safe. At first light, the storm begins to subside. The sky, still heavy with clouds, shows patches of pale blue between the cracks. The rock glistens, covered in frozen droplets that hang like crystals. The ibexes emerge from the cave slowly, inspecting. Nothing is done without caution. But the day has changed, and with that change, so has the group's behavior. In the renewed light, the appearance of these females is clearly revealed. Their fur is thick, a shade of brown that darkens in winter, as if the mountain itself were covering them with a heavier cloak. In summer, this same coat lightens to shades of grey or light beige, allowing them to blend in with the dry stone and intense light of the warmer months. The shedding occurs gradually, one layer after another, adapting to the altitude and temperature cycles. The alpine ibex is a compact creature. Its body is massive and austerely proportioned. Its muscles are arranged for strength and support, not for speed. Its low center of gravity allows it to execute tight turns on steep slopes. Its short, powerful legs act as movable columns rather than flexible limbs. Females, like these in the group, have backward curving horns, smaller in size than those of the males, but equally marked by growth rings. These rings not only indicate age, but also the times when the animal experienced harsh winters or abundant springs. The horn is a living archive. In the Alps, ibex live in stable groups made up of females and their young. The group structure is not chaotic. It has its rules, although confrontations are rarely necessary to enforce them. Hierarchy is expressed in minimal gestures, a posture, a movement, a firm gaze. Physical disputes are rare. Experience outweighs strength. The lead female is usually the most experienced. She has endured more winters than the others, and her memory preserves routes, shelters, and signs that only time can teach us to recognize. That experience isn't abstract. It has saved lives. When the weather became unpredictable, when the mountain closed its paths, it was she who knew where to turn, when to wait, why not to move forward. That's why her guidance is unchallenged. No one tries to replace her. There's no need to impose oneself. Her presence inspires confidence, and that confidence is enough for everyone to follow her. Morning progresses. The group disperses among the rocks, searching for new chutes and safe areas to feed. Everything happens with that apparent calm that only species that have learned not to rush can achieve. But not all ibexes live in communities. The male, on the other hand, leads a different life. Outside of the mating season, males remain on the sidelines. They gather in scattered groups, wandering along higher slopes where the snow takes longer to melt and the silence is almost total. When autumn heralds the start of the mating season, the males descend into the valleys in search of females, so clashes become inevitable. Two males observe and size each other up. They rise up on their hind legs and charge forward, colliding with a force that resounds against the stone. The blow is brutal, sharp, but far from chaotic. It's a measured ritual, a dance of strength and endurance that can be repeated for hours. That none of them ended up injured is no coincidence. The key lies in their anatomy, designed to withstand these blows without suffering irreparable damage. Their long, backward, curving horns are not simple weapons. They are structures adapted to absorb impacts. Its shape channels force away from the skull, and the reinforced, spongy frontal bone acts as a containment barrier. Even the brain is protected. Encased in robust meninges and with enough space to absorb shocks, an ibex's brain can withstand blows that in any other animal would be fatal. This is how hierarchies are calibrated. It's not so much who wins that matters, but who resists, who doesn't back down. It is a measure of tenacity rather than violence. When the battle ends, the female chooses the winner, taking into account both the strength displayed and the persistence and endurance demonstrated. It is the moment when life is secured and the cycle continues. Gestation lasts about 6 months. The young are born in early summer when conditions are more stable. They develop in steep, inaccessible areas where the mother can keep them out of the reach of large carnivores such as wolves or golden eagles. From their first days of life, young ibexes display a surprising ability to move among rocks. It is not an acquired skill, it is a condition of birth. Their diet is based on sparse but resilient vegetation. Lichens, mosses, high mountain grasses, and tiny flowers that bloom for just a few weeks a year. The ibex's digestive system is designed to extract nutrients from materials that other herbivores wouldn't. Chewing tough stems and digesting coarse fibers is part of its daily routine. In the Swiss Alps, its natural enemies are rare, although not non-existent. The harsh terrain and extreme climate limit the presence of large predators, but the threat remains latent. Over the highest peaks of the Swiss Alps, the clouds are slowly dispersing, revealing wet rock and trails made slippery by the recent storm. The group prepares to descend to a less steep slope, where the sun is already beginning to touch the surface and young vegetation is growing after the rains. Adults inspect with their eyes, measure distances and evaluate slopes. The young remain close behind, although some of them rush forward with clumsy enthusiasm. The silence surrounding them is no guarantee of calm. At these heights, vigilance never ceases. They are not alone, they never are, and they know it. Climbing to these heights is not just a strategy to access young shoots or avoid accumulated snow. It is above all a way to stay out of reach of land-based predators. Further down, at the edge of the forest, lynxes and foxes follow old routes in search of easy prey. But on these ridges, where the rock rises without interruption and the air holds no heat, most hunters cannot follow them, except one. One of the youngest has been delayed, not through negligence, but by simple choice. He spotted a patch of tender grass between 2 rocks a few meters below the group and decided to take advantage of it before continuing. It's not far from the others, maybe 30 or 40 meters. But in this environment, that distance can become an abyss. The wind, which still whistles irregularly through the mountain crevices, is the only sound that accompanies her. The slope on which it stands descends sharply. Below, it cuts into a sharp ravine. The rocks are still damp but stable. The mountains in the background form an unmistakable profile. The Matterhorn rises like a spear frozen in time. The scene is silent, too silent. Then something changes. First, a shadow crosses the stone, swift and oblique. Then a sound that comes neither from the rock nor from the wind, a high-pitched whirring noise like the whistling of a projectile. The baby stops. He looks up at the sky. He doesn't quite understand what he's looking for, but what's coming isn't announced twice. A golden eagle hovers above. It has been there for minutes, following the group from a distance, assessing, waiting. Now that one of the group has been isolated, it's time to act. From a medium height, the eagle folds its wings and plummets. The trajectory is straight without breaks, talons extended, body tense. In less than 3 seconds, it impacts. He doesn't go for the neck or the emerging horns. He focuses on the flank, where he can apply pressure and destabilize. The blow is accurate. The prey wobbles, spinning around. The eagle can't hold it firmly. Its weight and the terrain make it impossible, but for a moment it lifts it. An unnatural gesture. The ibex's body lifted from the ground by unforgiving wings, but it's only a moment. The grip fails, and the baby falls. First he slides down the rock, then he falls. His body hits a ledge, bounces, and continues down. The speed increases with every meter. He is lost among the rocks, crushed by the relentless hardness of the mountain. From above, the eagle hovers for a few seconds, tracing slow circles. It watches patiently, confirming the absence of movement. It doesn't fly in a hurry. There's no urgency in its flight. It reaches a nearby ledge, lands firmly, and watches. Its head barely moves. Analyze, then approach. The eagle lands next to the ibex's body. Without hesitation, it calmly begins to feed. Using its beak and claws, it separates the fresh meat while leaving the inedible parts intact. Every movement is precise and measured, the result of years of instinct and experience. Nothing is taken, not a single piece, to another place. The body remains lying on the rock, torn and scarred by the brutal fall. Silence returns for a moment, broken only by the whisper of the wind and the distant echo of the storm beginning to subside. But the story doesn't end here. From the top of the ravine, a slow shadow descends. He calmly approaches the corpse that the bird of prey has left behind. His movements are slow, measured, aware of the environment around him. Before feeding, carefully inspect the prey, paying attention to every usable portion. The griffon vulture, famous for its tireless resilience and ability to find value where others have passed by, leaves nothing of use. In the distance, from the high ledges, some ibexes watch. They witnessed everything: the fall, the attack, the death. What was the end for one is a silent warning for them. No one makes a sound, but the message persists. Below, the vulture remains focused on its task. Soon others spiral down, drawn by the same trail. There's no arguing or rushing. There'll be enough for everyone. With a wingspan that can exceed 2.5 meters, these birds glide for miles without flapping their wings, relying on the upward thermal currents that shape the air over the rugged terrain. From those heights, they watch silently. And when death demands its place, they descend to fulfill their irreplaceable role. Their claws aren't made for hunting, they don't tear or kill. They're tools of balance. The same goes for their curved beak, reminiscent of a hunter's, but it doesn't wound. It only tears and divides efficiently what's already dead. Unlike its African relatives, which inhabit open, hot plains where they must share the carcass with hyenas, jackals, or even lions, the griffon vulture moves in a different environment. It's not the savanna that surrounds it, but rather the abyss. It doesn't land on flat ground, but rather perches on sharp rock outcrops. Their wings, though equally broad, are designed to capture the weak thermal currents that emerge between the crevices. Their flight is slower, less devastating, and their search for food is more patient. Where their African relatives descend in droves, forming noisy crowds and fighting over the best cut, the alpine griffon vulture usually eats in small groups. It doesn't have to fight, it just has to wait. The mountain takes care of the rest. Many see him as an opportunist, a creature that doesn't hunt, that doesn't chase, that only arrives when others have already done the hard work. A winged parasite, a shadow that thrives on the efforts of others. But this image, so human in its judgment, ignores the essential. Because the griffon vulture doesn't just survive on carrion, it transforms it, it eliminates it. In the alpine ecosystem, where the temperature can preserve corpses for days, even weeks, their role is indispensable. Without it, rotting flesh becomes a breeding ground for infection. Bacteria multiply, gases are released, tissues rot on the very ground where other animals graze and rest. And it is there that the vulture acts as an invisible agent of balance. The vulture's stomach is extremely acidic, capable of digesting tissues in an advanced state of decomposition, thin bones, cartilage, and tendons. With each bite, it eliminates what the mountain cannot bury. It consumes what time and snow cannot dissolve. In other words, it cleanses, and it does so without fuss, without struggle, without new blood, only with persistence. But there are times when the scavengers don't arrive in time. There are bodies hidden in deep crevices, under loose rocks, between folds of terrain that not even the wind touches. And if decomposition begins without witnesses, the danger does not die with the prey. It begins with it. In the rugged heights of the Swiss Alps, where life challenges every inch of terrain, death also has its ways of lingering. As the body of a fallen animal warms in the sun or remains wet after a storm, it slowly transforms into something else. The soft tissues are exposed to the silent work of bacteria, and in just a few days, what was once muscle turns into broth. The meat begins to emit gases. The corpse is no longer just abandoned meat, it is a biological bomb. Bacteria, such as Clostridium perfringens, find in these remains the perfect environment, warm, humid, without competition. There, they release toxins that, if ingested by another animal, attack with surgical precision. They first affect the digestive system. They destroy the intestinal mucosa, impede the absorption of nutrients, and cause tissue necrosis. What follows is a slow internal collapse, impossible to detect from the outside until it is too late. Sometimes that collapse starts with a single bite. A fox finds a hidden corpse and devours it. He is not driven by a keen sense of smell or opportunity, but by desperation. He has not hunted for days, and hunger has dulled his judgment. But inside, without knowing it, he now carries a disease he doesn't understand. He can't trace its origin. He can't blame the corpse. He only knows that something inside him is starting to fail. The animal doesn't correct the damage or try to escape. It doesn't seek roots, plants, or relief. What follows is a pure physiological response. The body reduces movement, seeks refuge in the shade, and withdraws from the group. Sometimes he chews grass mechanically. Other times he licks snow to cool his fever. But none of this stops the advance of toxins. The body resists with the bare minimum: warmth, reserves, reflexes. If these continue to act, what happens is a death without visible violence, a body that fades away far away, without witnesses, without traces of struggle. And yet there are diseases that don't just kill, they also transform. They don't attack the stomach, they attack the brain. Rabies, for example, transforms an animal into something else, a body subjected to a will it doesn't recognize as its own. A bite is enough, a fleeting brush of saliva and blood. From that moment on, the virus begins its brutal advance. It enters through the peripheral nerves, slowly ascends through the spinal cord, and when it reaches the brain, it rewrites it. The body remains the same, but the instinct no longer belongs to it. Rabies doesn't act immediately. It takes time. It can go 1 or 2 weeks without symptoms, and then, without warning, the process begins. First, mild restlessness. The fox seems more alert, more sensitive to sounds. Then the signs accumulate: agitation, loss of appetite, erratic behavior. Aggression appears as an outbreak, without reason or pattern. The fox bites inanimate objects, snaps at the air, and makes strange vocalizations. He begins to lose the urge to approach areas he would never have ventured before. His movements become clumsy, as if each paw were responding to a different impulse. His salivation becomes excessive. His thirst is unquenchable, but he's unable to drink. The water causes spasms. His throat, paralyzed, no longer responds. The tragedy isn't just that he suffers. The tragedy is that he can't hide it, and in nature, weakness is visible from afar. Other foxes avoid him. Some attack him. He quickly loses his place in the group and becomes a walking hazard. A body that still breathes but no longer belongs to life. Death occurs from collapse, starvation, external aggression, or pure neurological disruption. No treatment is possible. No strategy reverses it. What remains in the end is a fox lying on a rock or among roots, with dried foam on the corner of its snout and its eyes wide open. In the Swiss Alps, where everything seems defined by the majesty of the mountain or the precision of evolution, disease is invisible. It has no form. It leaves no traces on the rock or marks in the snow. But it is there. In the intestines that swell without warning, in the bodies that hide when they sense something isn't working, in the bites that don't kill but sow. He is an invisible actor, and yet it serves a purpose. Illness, in its own way, selects, it purifies, it interrupts, it curtails, it doesn't respect strength or intelligence, sometimes not even age. It just happens. Just as the ibex falls if it slips and the vulture arrives if it smells blood, there is also that other fall, the internal one, the one that can't be seen from afar, the one that generates neither flight nor pursuit. Just a silent change inside a body, a signal that doesn't arrive in time, and an unceremonious end. In an ecosystem as precise as that of the Swiss Alps, even what is unseen, what dissolves into the invisible, is part of the balance. The mountains are now behind us, but the vertigo has lessened. The landscape has descended into a denser rhythm. Below 2,000 meters, where the red spruce stands like a vegetal sentinel and the ground is covered with dry needles, moss, and intertwined roots, another form of life begins. A quieter one, more hidden. Here the wind doesn't whistle between the ridges or break into dry gusts. It filters through. It passes between high branches, curves between trunks, and dissolves into the shadow. The light arrives fragmented. The forest breathes through irregular gaps between the canopy. The air is more humid, denser. And what inhabits this place doesn't need to run or fly to dominate it. Barely visible with a compact dark brown body, the alpine bark beetle measures just a few millimeters. But beneath the silence of the fir trees, its presence is overwhelming. It is called typographer because of the marks it leaves. A series of tunnels carved under the bark that, seen together, resemble a secret alphabet. It's not a flaw in the wood, but rather a pattern of invasion. It doesn't hunt, it doesn't chase, it doesn't flee, it burrows. A male bores the first gallery in a weakened fir tree, one that has suffered from drought, lightning, disease, or simply the passage of time. From within, it emits pheromones. It's a precise and powerful chemical signal. Within hours, 2, 3, and sometimes more females arrive, digging side tunnels where they will lay their eggs. There, each gallery is a promise of birth. Upon hatching, the larvae feed on the phloem, the living tissue of the tree. Their advance disrupts the flow of sap, and what doesn't die immediately begins to collapse in slow motion. Upon emergence, the new adults disperse. They seek out new trees. If the summer is long and the winter is mild, the cycle repeats 2, even 3 times in a single season. The natural rhythm accelerates, and what was once localized damage soon becomes a forest epidemic. The typographer beetle has always existed, but climate change has given it an unexpected advantage. Previously, the deep cold of the alpine winter reduced its numbers and disrupted its reproduction. Now, with milder temperatures, more beetles survive, more generations are born, and consequently, more trees fall. From the outside, the forest appears untouched, but just look closely. Cracked bark, dark holes, sawdust accumulated at the base of the trunk. Inside, the geometry of collapse has already begun, and the tree, even though it's still standing, is already dead inside. Unlike other insects, the typographer doesn't act alone. En masse, they are capable of coordinating what are known as group attacks, a synchronized invasion of trees that would otherwise resist. But even a healthy fir tree can surrender to hundreds of individuals by piercing its defense system, resin. In small amounts, this sticky aromatic sap is enough to suffocate intruders, but when the numbers multiply, the resin isn't enough, and the tree loses. But it's not all destruction. The typographer beetle has allies. Associated with it lives a fungus, Ophiostoma Polonicum. Upon entering the tree, the beetle carries spores that colonize the host's tissues. The fungus helps break down the tree's defenses, but also creates a more nutritious habitat for the larvae. As a team, the beetle and the fungus form a partnership that is lethal to the forest but vital to the entire ecological network that lives beneath the bark. Because despite its impact, the Ips typographus is not an intruder. It has been part of this ecosystem for centuries. By weakening dying trees, it opens the way for light, for new growth, for forest regrowth. Black woodpeckers, such as Dryocopus martius, they bore into infested trunks in search of larvae. Insectivorous mammals follow this trail, and once the tree falls, another cycle begins, that of moss, fungi, and lichens. Plant death, like animal death, also has its scavengers, and this beetle is one of them. But even in the most constant chaos, a moment of calm emerges. When the shadows of winter cover the forest and activity seems to grind to a halt, the natural world prepares for a much-needed pause. During this time, this tiny insect enters a state of diapause. Its metabolism slows to a minimum, and it remains hidden inside the tree or under the leaf litter, patiently waiting. Although it is resistant to the cold, it does not ignore it, and knows when it is time to wake up. At the first sign of thawing, the first sign of warmth is enough to reactivate the cycle, bringing the forest back to life. The difference with its relatives from African or Mediterranean latitudes is marked. In the Swiss Alps, this beetle has evolved to withstand extremes, long winters, short but intense summers, and constant pressure from altitude, humidity, and competition. He doesn't need speed or strength, he only needs something more subtle, timing. Because time in their world is not an obstacle but an advantage. It allows the tree to emerge when it is most vulnerable. It gives it room to reproduce several times in a favorable season, and that's what allows him to go through the winter without weariness, in silence. While everything freezes, he waits. While others rush ahead, he settles in, and when the time comes, he starts again. This slow, almost imperceptible rhythm sustains a different logic. One based not on immediate impact, but on consistency, on accumulation, on the invisible. The most disconcerting thing of all is its scale. While high above on the cliffs, eagles hunt with relentless precision, and ibexes defy gravity with every stride, here, beneath the skin of the forest, a half-centimeter-long organism can silently bring down a 30-meter-high giant. No flight, no race, no visible violence, just patience. In this region, sometimes the most devastating thing is not what breaks in, but what settles in, what works from within, what is not seen. And so, as we descend from the perpetual snows of the alpine peaks into the shadows of the forest, the natural drama doesn't disappear. It just changes in scale. Because even here, where the sun barely touches the ground and everything seems motionless, there are lives that write their history in tunnels, carve wood with precision, and leave their signature on the spine of the forest. Fallen wood, marked by bark beetle furrows, remains on the ground as a silent record of decay. Between bare branches and exposed roots, the forest is still active even though the surface appears otherwise. Beneath that world, hidden in deep tunnels that escape sight, another creature has perfected a parallel life. In the lower strata of the alpine forest, as the day draws to a close, the European badger's turn begins. It's neither a powerful hunter nor a great migrator. Its strength lies in its perseverance, in its intimate and patient relationship with the land. It builds extensive burrows, called badger burrows, which can be several square meters in size, with dozens of meters of tunnels and multiple entrances distributed throughout the terrain. These complex structures include chambers for sleeping, storing food, and disposing of waste, and are often inhabited by successive generations. There are systems excavated years ago that are still active, slowly expanding, as if the badger refused to completely abandon the work of its ancestors. In the rugged terrain of the Swiss Alps, these badger dens are not just a refuge, they are a survival strategy. To accomplish this task, the badger has a compact, muscular body adapted to life underground. Its powerful claws dig effectively even in rocky or frozen soil. Its elongated, narrow head makes it easy to enter its tunnels, while a thick layer of fat under its skin protects it during cold nights. Although it does not hibernate strictly speaking, it drastically reduces its activity during the winter, feeding on reserves accumulated in the fall. When night falls and the forest fades into shadows, the badger emerges. He moves cautiously, sniffing the air. Its sense of smell is keen, guiding it through the undergrowth in search of earthworms, insects, roots, fallen fruit, and small rodents. Unlike large alpine predators, its diet is broad and flexible, allowing it to withstand adverse weather conditions. It rarely hunts, but when it does, it acts with unexpected precision and speed for its size. The alpine forest, which for other animals is a place of passage or a barrier, turns out to be a familiar and measured environment for this creature. It knows the trails, the gentle slopes, the areas where the soil is most fertile. It marks its domain with specialized glands that emit pheromones, establishing the invisible boundaries of its territory. When this demarcation is not enough to deter invaders, the badger defends itself primarily by means of warning signals, deep growls, displays of fangs, and imposing body postures. These signs are clear enough to avoid physical confrontations, as the risk of fighting could cause injuries that would compromise their survival in such a demanding environment. However, life underground can impose different rules than those above ground. In places where space and resources are scarce, the need to resist overcomes the barriers of territoriality. Some badger nests, especially in these difficult areas, are shared by individuals who are not part of the same family group. Unexpected coexistence becomes a strategy because beyond isolation, underground architecture offers something even more valuable: permanence. In this shared space, this permanence is not just a physical refuge. It is a tacit alliance between strangers to resist together the conditions imposed by the mountain. Outside, however, everything happens on a different scale. The badgers advance without leaving a clear trail, far from the footsteps of the deer or the trails of the fox. It is not heard often, it does not break into clearings or leave signs of haste, and yet it remains. It has learned to sustain itself without fanfare, dodging winter's peaks, avoiding direct contact with wolves or lynxes, and relying on the night as a shield. Its movements are low, almost imperceptible, a silhouette digging among roots and leaves, sniffing, dragging something found in the ground between its teeth. Sometimes it freezes at the burrow entrance and simply waits. Its most consistent ritual is returning. It is in this continuous, almost methodical return that the badger maintains a silent relationship with the most terrestrial heart of the Alps. Where predators run and scavengers watch from above, he digs, builds, repairs, and disappears without a trace, as if his whole life consisted of maintaining from below the balance of what happens on the surface. From this soil, shaped by burrows and roots, life ascends to the heights. Among low branches, not far from the badger's territory, a small, nervous figure moves with determination. Its reddish fur, vibrant even in the dense shadows, betrays its presence for a moment before it disappears again among the trunks. This red squirrel, one of the most emblematic rodents of alpine forests, lives at altitudes ranging from 500 to 2,000 meters, where firs, pines, and larches form an ideal network of shelter and food. Its strong, flexible front legs grip the bark with precision, while its long, dense tail acts as a rudder, stabilizing each leap, both in height and distance. There's no clumsiness in his movements. He leaps from branch to branch with the confidence of someone who knows the architecture of the forest down to the last inch. The ears, topped with a tuft that changes length with the season, give it an unmistakable profile. But this unique shape isn't just for aesthetics. It's designed to retain warmth in harsh winters and to channel sound waves more precisely. The auricular muscles surrounding the pinna work independently, rotating toward the slightest sound, allowing you to effectively triangulate the location of a potential hazard. Their hearing is fine and precise, complemented by excellent vision to detect contrasts and subtle movements between the cups. Its diet is closely linked to alpine vegetation. It consumes Scots pine nuts, larch seeds, beech fruits, hazelnuts, berries, mushrooms, and even the bark of young branches when scarcity is acute. In autumn, the red squirrel increases its activity and spends much of the day collecting and burying supplies in multiple scattered hiding places. The fragmented storage strategy minimizes the risk of losing their entire livelihood to a looter, and at the same time, it plays an essential ecological role. As many unrecovered seeds germinate come spring, turning this small forest dweller into one of the main agents of forest regeneration at these altitudes. This ability to prepare for winter is complemented by the meticulous construction of their shelters, adapted to withstand harsh alpine conditions. Their nests, located in natural cavities or in abandoned nests, are closed, spherical, and compact structures. There it accumulates moss, dry grasses, feathers, and bark to maintain a stable temperature inside. Although it does not hibernate during the coldest months of the alpine winter, which generally extend from late November to early March, it drastically reduces its activity, remaining in the nest for much of the time and emerging only briefly to feed. With the arrival of the breeding season, their routine changes completely. The life cycle of this agile rodent is reflected in evident behavioral changes during the mating season. Their behavior becomes more restless, they emit dry, high-pitched vocalizations and engage in brief, chaotic chases through the branches. These chases play a crucial role in sexual selection. They allow males to demonstrate agility and skill, attributes that females evaluate as indicators of good health and genetic ability. Through vocal and postural signals, females communicate their receptivity and select males who dominate territories and display strength, which increases the chances of survival for their offspring. This process also helps establish hierarchies and avoids violent confrontations, while synchronizing the hormonal states necessary for mating. Mating takes place in midwinter or early spring, and after a gestation period of around 6 weeks, the young are born in hidden, well-insulated nests built in tree cavities. The mother remains with them during the first weeks, providing constant warmth and protection. The young are born blind and naked, completely dependent, and it is during this period of maternal stillness that their senses begin to develop and the thick fur that will help them maintain body temperature when the time comes to leave the shelter begins to form. As the days go by, not only do their bodies grow stronger, but they also hone the skills that will sustain their adult lives. The red squirrel has remarkable cognitive development, especially for the challenges of an environment as demanding as that of alpine forests. Its spatial memory is amazing. It can remember dozens of food caches for several months, even under snow. The hippocampus, the brain region linked to orientation and navigation, is more developed than in related terrestrial species, reflecting a specialized brain adaptation. In essence, their nervous system is tuned to a life at altitude, to making immediate decisions, to calculating escape routes based on the geometry of the forest. This set of capabilities goes beyond speed or physical strength. It defines a way of life based on anticipation and constant vigilance. The red squirrel has refined this vigilance as a form of survival. It recognizes the sound patterns of its surroundings, memorizes the arrangement of each branch in its territory, and detects subtle changes in the behavior of other species. The sudden silence of birds, the creaking of a branch in an unexpected place, or the shifting wind that carries unfamiliar smells can be warning signs. These are not mere passing sensations, but rather cues that the squirrel constantly displays and responds to, integrating each signal into the complex web of its daily vigilance. On the ground, where he loses some of his usual control, his gait becomes cautious and tense. His body remains glued to the ground, while his eyes scan the horizon in quick bursts. Suddenly it freezes. There was no sound, it was an absence. The birds have stopped singing. From the undergrowth, a young wolf stares at her, motionless, watching and waiting. The squirrel remains motionless as well. For a second, time seems to stand still, then he reacts with precision. In less than a heartbeat, it rises to the densest part of the foliage. The chase is interrupted. The wolf remains on the ground, sniffing, searching, but finds nothing. Only the silence left by the squirrel as it fled through the air. From above, she remains motionless and silent. Her body, still tense, remains alert until the predator moves away. Only then does it move again, disappearing among the branches. In the Swiss Alps, the red squirrel survives not because of strength or size, but because it has made the forest its territory and refuge. In this vertical architecture, finding a rival is a difficult task. The wolf advances cautiously, aware that every step can make a difference. Although his prey eluded him this time, his instinct remains intact, honing each experience for the next opportunity. It was not a real prey, but a rehearsal, an instinctive attempt to channel energy. Still breathing heavily, he begins to walk toward where his group is waiting. His steps sink gently between dry leaves and the light snow, and as he emerges from between the trees, he does not go unnoticed. Although their entrance was silent, the others have already noticed. A young wolf tilts its head, and another approaches slowly. Without warning, they all begin to swish their tails, a clear sign of harmony and recognition. The reunion, simple and almost ritualistic, takes place amidst scents, surroundings, and mutual recognition. No words or sounds are necessary. They know they're part of the same pack. This silent recognition is neither casual nor superficial. Behind the ferocious image, often attributed to the wolf, lies a complex social structure shaped by trust, bonding, and a particular form of loyalty. The pack is not a random group of hunters. It is an organized unit where each individual knows his place and maintains a specific relationship with the others. The newly arrived wolf approaches one of its peers and licks its snout. Another nuzzles it with its head. It is not gratuitous affection, it is an ancestral choreography of recognition and belonging. Through these daily interactions, the pack's emotional framework is built. They groom each other not only to stay clean, but also to strengthen their bonds. Their sense of smell allows them to detect subtle changes in the emotional state of others, and this sensitivity is key to their group functioning. There's no room for disengagement. An uncoordinated pack doesn't hunt, and if it doesn't hunt, it doesn't survive. This social framework is based, however, on a defined hierarchical structure. Although the traditional image of the alpha wolf has been misinterpreted and oversimplified, the truth is that there are status differences between individuals, and these differences become visible at specific times. Hierarchy is not sustained by the abuse of power, but by experience, initiative, and the ability to unite the group. Leadership is neither permanent nor immovable, but it is respected. Sometimes, when the prey has been smaller or the effort has outweighed the reward, the sharing is not done quietly. Hierarchies become visible, raw, like marks that cross every gesture. One of the wolves has caught a prey, but it is not enough for everyone. He drags it through the trees, head held high and body tense, making it clear that the food belongs to him. He stops, breathes heavily, and begins to nibble at the meat. But he's not alone. Around him, other members of the group watch, waiting for a signal. One of them is approaching, too fast. The first one doesn't allow it. A deep, sustained growl cuts through the air as he bares his teeth without looking away. The other stops, hesitates. He makes one more attempt. Then, without excessive violence, comes the correction, a sharp bite to the snout. There's no fuss, just order. The subordinate wolf crouches, lowers its head, and places its ears back. Then it lies down, its back exposed. It's not just a stance, it's a language. It says it doesn't pose a threat, that it recognizes its place, and that, in a pack, is enough to avoid confrontation. This behavior isn't a sign of constant conflict. Rather, it's a refined balancing mechanism. Wolves need internal boundaries to function as a collective, and just as they can show affection, they must also make it clear what is not allowed. Regulating these tensions strengthens cohesion. Everyone understands their place and accepts it not as punishment but as part of an effective structure. Throughout the day, when not hunting, wolves move in groups, resting together and alerting each other to any disturbance. They do not sleep completely deeply. Their senses remain active, alternating between vigilance and rest. During these interludes, social behaviors reappear. One wolf approaches another, nudging it gently with its snout, encouraging it to play or make contact. Break is also a time to strengthen unity, and the youngest learn by observing. They not only mimic hunting or stalking movements, but also social gestures, how to approach, how to ask for food, how to apologize after a violation. The rules are unwritten, but they are transmitted with surprising precision. This early social learning is key to the pack's long-term success. A young wolf that doesn't adapt, that doesn't understand the internal dynamics, will eventually be displaced or rejected. And yet, despite this hierarchical firmness, the pack is, at its core, a community that functions through affection and collaboration. It's not just about hunting together, but about living together. When one member is injured, the others adjust their pace. When there are puppies, adults, even those who are not immediate parents, participate in their care, protecting them and feeding them. This sense of the collective goes beyond efficiency. It is an expression of an advanced social life, where violence is a tool of survival but never a substitute for connection. The wolf who failed to catch the squirrel, now lying among his people, seems to have forgotten that awkward incident. One of the youngest lies down next to him and gently bites his ear in a tension-free game. The entire pack is preparing to move, but there's no urgency yet. The next move will be a group move, decided without words when everyone is ready. Low fog covers the alpine forest. Moisture accumulates on the trunks, on the stones, and on the moss that covers the exposed roots. There's no wind. The air is still, dense. The murmur of a distant stream, filtered through the thicket, is barely audible. High up in a fir tree, amidst the cracked bark, an eagle owl remains motionless. Its silhouette blends in with the trunk. The thick, mottled feathers replicate the pattern of aged wood. Only his eyes break the camouflage, two orange spheres fixed, lit in the darkness. He doesn't blink, he doesn't tremble, he simply observes silently from a height that dominates the entire terrain. Below, among the tangle of fallen trunks, something is approaching. A nimble body, stealthy in its gait, creeping forward through the gaps in the moss and ferns. The European marten's thick fur gleams faintly in the moonlight filtering through the canopy. There's no sound beneath its paws, its senses are tense. It smells blood. On the ground, half hidden among roots, lies a dead red squirrel. Its legs are still trembling from the inertia of its final spasm. The owl killed it moments ago. It didn't have time to devour it. Now he watches from above, assessing. The marten is approaching, attracted by the scent. It hasn't detected the owl, it can't. The bird's camouflage is perfect. Despite his stillness, his eyes do not miss even the slightest movement. Their night vision is exquisite. They distinguish shapes, textures, and movements that are invisible to other animals. His pupils, dilated to the maximum, collect every photon that passes through the fog. He doesn't need to turn his head to see his prey. He's been sizing it up since it first appeared. And then something changes in his face. He frowns. His facial discs tense, changing their shape. In the eagle owl, this contraction not only amplifies sounds, it also functions as a threat signal, a visual message that in this case no one sees, only him. The marten reaches its prey. It has fallen into the trap. In just an instant, the owl plummets from its branch without making a single sound. The owl's talons, powerful enough to fracture a fox's skull, strike the marten's back with brutal force. A high-pitched screech cuts through the silence. The small body shudders. The marten spins, tries to bite, writhes, but the owl is already upon it. It opens its wings just enough to cover the bird. It encloses it beneath its body. It turns its head. Its curved beak seeks the intruder's neck. The raptor begins to tear her apart with its beak. It tears off fragments of flesh and fur. There is no mercy. Only instinct guides every movement. Silence falls once more in the deep forest. On the ground, the dark moss is marked by fresh stains, while the only sound is the dry crunch of bones under the curved beak. From a hillside a few miles away, a long, deep howl resounds. A haunting echo, a distant call that evokes the presence of a distant herd. Hearing that unmistakable sound, the owl immediately turns its head, alert to any threat. The marten still lies beneath its claws, but the instinct to protect itself outweighs hunger. With a slight push, it opens its wings, rises silently, and lands on a higher branch where the foliage completely covers it. Below, minutes later, the wolves appear. They sniff around the place, make short circles, inspect every corner. But prey on the ground no longer attracts them. Too little to justify the effort of staying. There is no dispute. Encountering neither resistance nor loot, the pack leaves as quietly as it arrived. Only then, when the echo of the footsteps fades among the trunks, does the owl descend once more. He returns to the same spot, positions himself on the prey, and resumes the task with surgical precision. There's no rush. There are no interruptions. The entire forest seems to part at his presence. And even if others stalk or interrupt it at times, it always returns. Because in the alpine night, when the others retreat, the eagle owl still reigns. As the sun peaks behind the peaks from a steep ledge, the wolf pack watches the valley. They've spent the entire night moving through hillsides and stretches of dense forest. They've managed to hunt, but not enough. There's still hunger. From a jagged ledge, the wolves pause to watch. Below, a group of roe deer advances unhurriedly, rummaging through grass and tender branches. They don't look up. They don't hear anything. But they are already marked. An almost imperceptible change sweeps through the group. The dominant male stands up and begins to descend, not quickly but with direction. The others follow, fanning out on either side with low, attentive movements. There are no vocalizations or overt signals. The understanding is silent, learned over many winters. Some adults take the right flank, skirting the low trees while others circle west, positioning themselves where the terrain forms a steep slope. The intention is not to reach immediately, but to divide. At the base of a bush-covered opening, a younger, more impulsive wolf breaks the silence. His sudden appearance is enough to sow panic among the roe deer. The group bursts out in all directions, but the slope and the arrangement of the predators pushes them towards the neck of the trap. One of them, more corpulent and slow to react, involuntarily separates. He runs uphill where the mouth of the ambush awaits him. The animal tries to change direction, but the soft ground betrays him. It barely slides, and that's enough. The first bite pierces the tendon of his hind leg. He stumbles. Another wolf pounces and grabs him by the neck. He falls among broken branches and disturbed earth. The attack is swift and relentless. There are no pauses. The rest of the pack approaches the motionless body with absolute naturalness, as if each one knew exactly what part to take. Efficiency is not the result of frenzy, but of structure. Each individual knows very well the strategy to be followed. The dominant male is the first to sink his tusks in. He doesn't impose himself by force, but no one approaches until he has ripped open the flank. Then the adults take their place one after another, working on the warm meat. There are no clashes or grumblings. The hierarchy is established and hunger is under control. The youngest, relegated to the edges, tear small pieces from their legs. A female, mother of several cubs from the previous season, retreats a few steps with a morsel between her teeth. She buries it nearby as a reserve for later. Another adult with lighter fur turns its head away for a moment and sniffs the wind, alert for any scavengers that might be lurking. But there is no competition nearby. For the moment, the valley belongs to them. In less than an hour, the body has lost its original shape. The essentials have been devoured, and what remains is skin, long bones, and a bare ribcage, which will soon attract vultures. Satisfied, the herd has left the area and now moves slowly toward a line of pine trees higher up, where the damp ground offers them coolness and shade. They don't drag anything, they don't look back. They settle down among the lichen-covered stones and lie down, side by side, as if the day had just begun. The violence that just occurred leaves no trace in their gestures. Only the scent of blood, still lingering between their snouts, reminds us of what happened. Rest comes quickly, but it's not complete. Two of the adults remain upright, looking toward the forest. A third lies down, but keeps his ears turned toward the sounds of the environment. As the sun begins to lean west and the shadows lengthen, one of the adults sits up and lets out a long, deep howl. It's not an alarm signal or a warning, it's an affirmation of presence. From other parts of the forest, where the echo bounces between the mountains, some responses arrive distant, brief, like single notes. The entire pack joins in the call, each voice with its own tone, rhythm, and volume. It is an ancient choral chant that strengthens the cohesion among its members and declares without violence that this valley has already been claimed. The younger pups watch the ritual attentively, and some even dare to imitate it with short, still clumsy howls. There's no urgency in their call, but there is firmness. The hunt was successful, the pack is intact, the territory is still theirs. For now. But in the Swiss Alps, life doesn't stop with them. In the deep stillness of the woods, where the snow softens every sound and the shadows thicken, another lone hunter moves with stealth and precision. The boreal lynx, the only feline that inhabits this region, roams the land that is its natural right. Their presence is not a vestige, but living proof of a thorough, planned and effective recovery. It was exterminated in Switzerland at the end of the 19th century, a victim of indiscriminate hunting, the collapse of forest ecosystems and human encroachment. But in the 1970s, a series of carefully controlled reintroductions allowed its return. Today, it has firmly established itself in two key areas, the Northwestern Alps and the Jura mountain range. In both, it has rebuilt its dominance with an efficiency that is beyond the realm of precision adaptation to the mountains. The lynx's body is shaped to respond precisely to the mountain environment. Its fur changes thickness and color with the seasons, becoming thicker and paler in winter to camouflage itself in the snow and retain warmth. Its large padded paws act like natural snowshoes, distributing its weight over the soft snow, allowing it to move forward without sinking or making a sound. Its powerful muscles are compressed into a compact body just over 1 meter long, with a short tail that prevents heat loss and doesn't hinder its movement among rocks, branches, and slopes. But it's their head where some of their most sophisticated weapons are concentrated. Their ears end in a distinctive black tuft, composed of stiff hairs that, beyond their distinctive appearance, serve a sensory function. Each ear has more than 20 independent muscles, allowing them to move separately, accurately detect the direction of sounds, and adjust their orientation like sensitive antennas. This hearing ability allows it to detect prey moving among the leaves or under the snow, even without having to see them. Its audible range includes frequencies inaudible to other species, and its ability to isolate sounds in noisy environments makes it one of the most efficient predators in the Northern Hemisphere. Their dull amber eyes adapt to the darkness of dawn and dusk, when the forest begins to awaken and medium-sized prey become more active. The vertical pupil controls the entry of light precisely, allowing you to maintain sharp, calculating vision in difficult conditions. It's this ability to accurately measure distances that makes the accurate jump possible, a jump that defines your success or failure. The teeth are not bulky, but they are sharp and efficient. Long canines easily pierce the victim's neck, and molars are designed to tear flesh with silent and rapid efficiency. The claws, hidden in repose, are revealed to be as curved as they are firm, versatile tools that grip tightly both prey and the verticality of trees and rocks, scenarios where it moves with equal skill and stealth. The lynx doesn't chase. It doesn't trot for hours. It doesn't harass. It approaches slowly, detects movement patterns, memorizes foraging routes, and learns the rhythms of its prey. It may take him days to find the right moment, but when he does, he acts with sudden violence. He doesn't improvise, he calculates and executes. The dawn light filters its first rays through the forest branches, dyeing the snow a pale, cold white. The air is clean and crisp, while the white blanketed ground muffles footsteps and softens sounds. A young roe deer advances cautiously, gently digging its feet into the fresh snow. It moves its head slowly, sniffing the air, alert for any sign. It stops, cranes its neck to look back, without noticing the silhouette hidden among the trees. The lynx remains motionless. Every muscle beneath its thick fur retains a latent, contained tension. Its ears, erect, perform almost imperceptible movements, adjusting precisely to the sounds of its surroundings. It doesn't take its eyes off the roe deer. It observes it, measures it, and waits. The target turns again, alerted by a slight crunch in the snow. He scans the forest silently, but can't make out anything among the motionless trunks. After a few seconds, he lowers his guard and resumes walking, giving the back to danger. That's when the lynx begins its approach, slow and measured, with steps so soft they don't disturb the snow. Every move is a calculation, a precise maneuver to reduce the distance without being detected. When the distance no longer allows for delay, the lynx stops for a moment. Its entire body tenses, focused on a single impulse. Then, without warning or prior sound, it launches. The charge is clean and brutal. The claws strike first, digging in with precision. The fangs then seek the neck with the violence of an act repeated 1,000 times. The victim barely manages to shudder before collapsing under the attacker's weight. The forest doesn't react. There's no roar, no warning, no escape. Only the silence remains. Unbroken and a motionless predator that, by instinct and necessity, has just fulfilled its part in the balance of these mountains. Stretching for more than 200 kilometers, the Swiss Alps stand as one of Europe's oldest and most iconic mountain ranges. These formations, whose peaks exceed 4,000 meters in height, altitude, have been sculpted by time, but above all by ice. During the last glacial maximum, about 20,000 years ago, this territory was almost completely covered by a vast mass of ice. Millenary glaciers descended through the valleys, eroding the rock, carving gorges and starkly defining the lines that today shape this magnificent mountain range. It was this persistent and devastating layer of ice that shaped its slopes, sculpted its mountain passes, and formed the glacial lakes that still scatter like mirrors among the rocks. When the ice began to retreat, it did so slowly, freeing the ground little by little. But this process didn't leave a silent void. It paved the way for a world in constant transformation, where every drop that fell heralded the life to come. Where icy stillness had once reigned, an extraordinary variety of environments began to unfold. Glaciers, although reduced, are still present, but now coexist with subalpine forests, grasslands, rocky and steep slopes, and high-altitude tundra. This transition marked the beginning of a process of recolonization by wildlife. Today, the Swiss Alps are home to more than 30,000 animal species, many of them extraordinarily adapted to the demands of this vertical and harsh environment. On the steepest cliffs, the alpine ibex ascends with a confidence that borders on the impossible. Their split, padded hooves act like pincers on the rock, and their sense of balance has been honed by generations of individuals who couldn't afford to fail. Below, the red fox slips through the bushes, taking advantage of the shadows with inherited stealth. Marmots, for their part, dig burrows in compact soil and survive for months under the snow thanks to precise and fine-tuned hibernation cycles. In the air, birds of prey adapt their flight to the turbulent currents that rise up the slopes. And in the stillness of the night, the owl watches patiently, adapted to the darkness and the cold, a silent guardian of these relentless heights. These cases, among many others, reveal a profound pattern. In the Alps, survival is not achieved by adapting to the climate or the terrain, but by adapting to both at the same time. Each species in these lands has found its specific way to persist. Whether flying, crawling, climbing, or stalking, each animal has shaped its body, behavior, and physiology to fit with millimeter precision into a system that rewards efficiency and rejects immobility. Evolution in this place has not been a luxury or an experiment, it has been a requirement, and that's precisely what makes the Swiss Alps more than just a stunning backdrop. They are an adaptation capsule, a natural theatre where life has demonstrated time and again that even in the most complex, rugged and cold environments, it can not only survive, but find new ways to exist. Ice carved the mountains, but it was life that dared to inhabit them.